start off with how you, maybe your background a bit, how you got into biotechnology and pharmaceutical science? It all sounds very exciting. What drew you to that?
So I don't know if remember with the mini article of the NRF Women's Month, whatnot. What I had said is that so when I was in matric, when you are in the typical Kasi schools, it's not often that you get the career day, that they take you to career days and whatnot. It's me getting prospectus, checking out prospectus, okay, courses that I want to do. I'm like, okay, I think this one, I think that one. See biotechnology. I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting, and it's biology, and yeah, I think it's something that one can do, I mean, I was not really, I didn't have enough information about it. What does it entail after I have completed my qualification? What will happen and all those things? I was like, you know what? I'll just take a leap of faith and go with this. And I did apply for biotechnology and then got accepted. And then this is me now doing biotechnology. And when I first got in, and then now we're doing the microbiology and all that stuff, and I was like, wow, this is so exciting and whatnot. And I was like, okay, I guess I chose something that I think I can be able to grow to love it and maybe enjoy doing. So with us at TUT, before you can get your diploma, you need to do an in-service training, which is for a year. So for me, I struggled to get an in-service in industry. And then what I did was to approach one of the lecturers. He was giving us a module of biochemistry, and he was doing research with medicinal plants. And I approached him and I said, sir, listen, this is me. I have been trying to get in-service training and I'm not getting anything, and I need to complete my diploma. If that's okay with you, can I please just volunteer and do some work for you for a year so that I can be able to get my diploma? And luckily enough for me, he said, that's okay, it's not a problem. And that's then how I got to work with medicinal plants. That's something that I was not used to, because with micro, it's just microorganisms, you're trying to infections and all those things. So when I got to doing this in-service training, then he was like, okay, for me, this project, what happens, he was more focusing on diabetes. So then he was like, okay, for you, I would want you to do just some antimicrobial activities for me using medicinal plants. And then that's when I got to learn the extraction part and whatnot. That's when now phytomedicine, that's the phytomedicine part of it. I didn't even have any background on that, but that's just something that I got to learn. And as I was learning that, he was even saying to me, why don't you, or do, like, he asked if I'm enjoying doing the research with them. Is it something that I think I would want to consider and do? And I said, definitely. And then he advised, why not do your BTech in pharmaceutical sciences then?
Nice. Yeah.
And then I went ahead, I did my BTech in pharmaceutical sciences. It was for 1 year. I did that. And after that, and that was not even, the 1 year, it didn't have research work. So it was just part of 5 modules, and then for a year, and then that's it. Then in that duration of my BTech, he was even saying to me, you should consider doing masters. And he said you should consider doing masters. And then I think I know there's a supervisor in the pharmaceutical department who's very good, and I think you will be a good fit in their group. And then I was like, but I need to go work. Like other people will be working and whatnot. So
yeah,
I went and worked for 4 or 6 months. And then it was at a food industry. So they were manufacturing Lay's chips. So I was a quality control technician there. I mean, during that 6 months when I was there, I got a letter to say that I think there was, when you keep on applying for posts and then you don't get any feedback. Surprisingly enough, I got feedback from NRF to say to me that I am one of the students who got an internship. And
Wow.
this internship, I will be based back at TUT. At the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences. So that took me back now to TUT. It took me to the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, and it landed me directly to the supervisor that my diploma supervisor or mentor was saying to me that I should consider doing my master's with
a master's, yeah.
Yes. So I got to do my master's with the actual supervisor that was suggested. And I had to now finish my internship, which was for a year. And for the purpose of that internship, the NRF internship is to encourage students to ask or to further their studies, to ask them if don't you want to further your studies. That's the part, that's the mentoring part of it, that students should just get their master's, their PhD. So that's when now my mentor said to me, also approached and asked, don't you want to do your MTech with us? And I said, definitely, because I'm enjoying the environment.
What you're doing, yeah.
I'm doing, and I'm loving this discovery of phytochemicals, of drugs that can be used to treat infections and all that. And I said, yes, I'm interested. And he said, okay, now let's put together a proposal and then you send it to NRF so that you can get a bursary. And I did just that before my end of my internship. Then I got my scholarship for my master's.
Nice. So you've talked now about like pharmaceutical science, phytochemicals, all of these words that we're hearing. For someone maybe who's not too familiar with, let's say pharmaceutical science, for example, how would you briefly describe it? What is it about, and what does it focus on?
So pharmaceutical sciences, I would say it has got different niches. With a pharmaceutical scientist, we are trying to find drugs or compounds that can be used to maybe treat illnesses, cancers, and all that. So we are behind the pharmacists. So we do the research behind the pharmacists, even though the pharmacists still do research themselves. So I would put it in that way, that pharmaceutical sciences is about the drug discovery. It was in one or two words, drug discovery.
And I like the word that you use, because that's basically what research is about. And it's just discovering things, how things work, if you can use this, if you cannot use this. And I think pharmaceutical sciences is such an amazing field to go into in terms of that, because the impact is really big. And speaking of the impact, I think your current, like you mentioned, you're currently PhD, and you're working specifically with phytochemicals, which is amazing. Firstly, what would you describe phytochemicals as, and what do you hope specifically to do with the research?
Phytochemicals it's sometimes we call them secondary metabolites. So you see, with your plant, your roots, your leaves, your stems and whatnot, they all have different compounds, which we call them phytochemicals. So let me just say it's made of maybe different ingredients, so to say. For example, cinnamon, they identify a specific compound inside that cinnamon, and they say, if we are to test this compound within cinnamon, we find that it can be able to treat a specific infection or a specific disease or illness or ailment. So with us being scientists now, we're going at that route of identifying exactly what's inside those plants and identify exactly what pathogens can be treated using those compounds or phytochemicals. So with my research, what we focus on, we are faced with antimicrobial resistance. For example, Pseudomonas aeruginosa is one of the priority pathogen in the World Health Organization priority list, the pathogens that require an agent development of new drugs, because now this pathogen has become smart or is using different ways of being resistant to the well-known antibiotics. So with my research, what we're trying to do is, can these medicinal plants that they're saying are known to treat different infections, can we try to identify the compounds that are inside those plants and see if they will be able to treat Pseudomonas aeruginosa? And since Pseudomonas aeruginosa uses different, now I'm going deep into the project, it uses different systems. So when I say systems, it's like, we call them quorum sensing system. So with pathogens, what happens is that they communicate, they have a cell-to-cell communication. So for them to cause an infection, they first send out signals in a host, and then once they send out these signals, and then you find maybe in a specific area, it's more susceptible, and it's now able to say, okay, once they form a quorum, now they are able to infect that specific host. And then for us, what we're trying to do is to find these compounds, to find or identify these compounds, and try to disrupt that communication of that pathogens. If we are successful, and we get to at least identify one compound to say, okay, this compound, we have identified that it can treat different quorum sensing system of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and it gets to be now tested. There's also toxicity studies that needs to be done, and then the in vivo studies that needs to be done. And from there, that's when now the clinical trials has to come in. You know, it's that thing of discovering drugs. So with research, you're just trying to find a gap within the research.
What do you hope for yourself in the future in terms of the direction of your research, your focus, and what do you hope that your study in particular will bring?
I am hoping that we can get to a point where we are not struggling with bacterial infections, where we have at least enough drugs or compounds that can be able to assist with infections, especially hospital-acquired infections, nosocomial infections. Those are the most troublesome infections, because the drugs that are now being used to treat these infections, they're not really working. And I'm hoping that with my research, we can now be able to say, maybe we can give the specific compound a shot, and maybe it can be a good drug, and we can be able to at least try to fill that gap or space. And another thing with me is that I love drug discovery. And I would love to see at least myself in industry or a research-based environment where they focusing on drug discovery, because I think that's just my first love, something that when you tell me about drug discovery, I'd be like, okay, I'm listening. What are you saying?
Tell me more.
Tell me more. What are you saying? What needs to be done? What can I help with? what input can I put in, you know? So I would love to be in that field of drug discovery once I'm done with my PhD. If I'm not proceeding further with postdoc, or still even if I'm proceeding further with postdoc, it will have to do with drug discovery.